That's too far away.
No, we're good.
We're good.
That's perfect.
Yeah. I'll edit that out.
Okay.
We're good.
All right. Here with Doc A. Thanks for the interview today. Answer some questions about your experiences during Vietnam. How closely would you say you and your family followed it?
I know that my family followed it very closely. However, I was young, and when it was on TV, I would be very upset. So I knew what was going on, but I didn't hear.
Okay. But you were still aware.
Oh yeah.
How would you say you felt about American war?
Right. But again, I was older. I was in early middle school, and so I knew enough to be afraid, and I didn't know how this would affect us on our homeland.
I'm not so sure about. I think
Did you know anyone who was drafted who was in the military at the time?
I knew people's siblings, like people's brothers who
what is that?
and all made it back.
That's good, obviously.
Everyone doesn't know.
So your family followed it closely. I mean, was it talked about a lot?
I think they do it.
Yeah, it was talked about a lot. My parents watched news anytime it was on. The news that was around dinner time, we watched it. The news at 11 o'clock, it was on. And that was the first war where there were shots of actual combat on TV, and it was scary.
How would you say their feelings towards it changed over the course of the war?
My parents.
Friends' feelings changes, I guess.
I think that the consensus was it was dragging on too long and too many Americans were losing their lives.
Now, during World War II, I guess this is interesting that I want to touch on. There was sort of racial prejudice towards Japanese people. Was there any similar things going on that you saw?
I did not see that, and I think that there was more anti-soldier stuff going on. I think that people who were so against the Vietnam War really treated returning soldiers worse than they treated ethnic people in their case.
Did you know anyone who was involved in war protests who was sort of part of the counterculture movement?
I knew someone who actually moved to Canada.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. And so he was a lot older than I was, and he packed up and he moved to Canada, and he never set foot in the United States again. And I know that because his dad passed away and he couldn't come home, and his mom recently passed away, and he's still...
You still after?
Yes.
God. That's taken to the extreme.
Yeah. But he lives in a beautiful place in Canada and has a really nice life.
Here's a pretty big event during Vietnam. Do you remember where you were when you heard about Kent State?
I actually do, only because I was playing on my schoolyard and somebody had said something happened, and then when I went home, I saw everything that happened on TV. But just somebody was yapping about it. And I think we were playing kickball, and so I was.
I mean, you were able to understand. I mean, what it.
Oh
what happened.
yeah. And Kent State wasn't the first. I guess it was the first major, but there were smaller protests and there were murmurings and things going on, and the protests were getting bigger and things were getting out of hand. So it was only a matter of time before somebody died.
I mean, did that create sort of, I guess, a fear
Of protesting?
of increased, military intervention, trying to keep the protests silent?
I wouldn't say that, but I don't think I was old enough to think that way, maybe. I just thought, who's going to protest now if you could lose your life protesting?
But it was definitely pretty scary to think.
Right, then you could just say, I'm holding a sign shouting some motto or phrase, they would kill them.
Now, I'm not sure how well you can give an answer to this, but what were the differences between, what the government, what the president was saying, and what you saw on TV?
Yeah. They tried, but they couldn't.
Yeah,
because it was
whatever.
documented.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in World War II, they would have things taped, but you didn't see it the next day or the day of. But with Vietnam, you saw it the next day or the day of. And so how can they lie? They would try and stir around it, but it's documented.
So, would you say that, as the war went on, as people began to see no progress is being made, people definitely trusted the government less?
Oh, yeah.
And how would you say something like Watergate affected that?
Again, no big surprise, because the people I know are leery of politicians and what they stand for and what they tell you, and who's financing them now comes into play. Back then, we didn't even have you could buy you're a politician. I guess back then you could, but it was on the down low.
Yeah.
Now you can just be a super PAC and buy your politician. But I think that there was already mistrust. I think that Nixon wasn't a popular president anyway, and then all of that happened. But again, it's like Snowden revealing what's going on. You know people are spying. You know people are lying.
Everybody has to know about it. Aside from political things, how would you? Were there any real effects on at home economically, socially that the war brought on? Would you say?
I think that in my neighborhood there were mothers whose sons were at war, and it was an emotional toll on them. Even when if their son came home while they weren't there was an emotional toll. So there wasn't the whole let's have a barbecue.
Yeah.
It's Sunday, let's have a barbecue. I think that social things and enjoyment were put aside because of the fear and the worry. I think that there were a lot of young married people who lost their spouses, which meant they lost their source of income because a lot of females didn't work. They were too old and they were to buy the rules, and if my president tells me that it's true, and if government says
Exactly.
this, and so they followed the rules, they would have never protested anything, and they just followed it, but they would have never protested.
So how do they feel about what the president was saying as what they saw on TV?
I don't remember them. I don't remember really listening to what they were saying. I just know my dad was in Korea, and he actually fought in the war. He wasn't stateside, and he was in Korea, and I know he was empathetic with what the soldiers were going through, and the conditions are very similar in Korea and Vietnam. You're on foreign soil, you don't speak the language, so I know that affected him. He was upset for them for all of those reasons. Besides, bullets are flying. You're in a place where you're really not welcomed by everyone. You don't speak the language. You obviously look different, so you're a soldier, even if you're not wearing a uniform. So he spoke more about those kinds of things.
How would you say, from what you saw, how would you say that GIs were treated when they came home?
I think that they were disrespected. It's not like today where military gets a discount and military gets treated like, oh, you were in the military and you can get to the movies for free or something like that. And I think that people who were angry about the war, instead of blaming governments and decisions, blamed the people who actually went and fought, which
never made any sense to me, but that's what they did. They were just like, oh, you were in Vietnam. And they assumed everybody coming back from Vietnam was a drug addict, which a lot of them were, because you were in Asia and it was available and you were in a horrible place and time, so they came back addicted to drugs. But not all of them, but the assumption was they're all drug addicts, and they all were in this war because they wanted to be.
Do you think something like the My Lai massacre, the slaughtering of a whole village, sort of maybe contributed to that view?
Maybe, but
Like,
that
in a
was
way you
before
can-
that. Yeah. I think that the soldiers were treated poorly before that. I think when people said enough's enough and this war has to end and we shouldn't be involved and bring our soldiers home, it was weird because it's like, okay, bring our soldiers home, but the soldiers who did come home were treated poorly. So, and then it's hard to defend massacre. And they tried to defend it by, we're at war, and if we don't do it to them, they'll do it to us. But women and children in the village.
Would you say there was a definite point when it became clear, all right, this is over, this has to end? When the whole country was on board with it? Maybe not like one to be specific, but
I think when it was the fall of Saigon and they started evacuating women and children, it was over.
I mean, what was it just a collective sigh of relief in the country when it was over?
I think so. I think when every last group of soldiers and American citizens were evacuated who wanted to be evacuated, it was over. And I also felt like it was over, but we lost.
Yeah.
And I think everybody felt that way. It's over, but we lost, but no other young men and women have to lose their lives. Because it's a not knowing battle. So how many more years are we going to do this?
In terms of long-term effects, anything economic, social, political, what do you think?
I think it just makes it harder to have military action somewhere to justify we're fighting for these people's freedom doesn't fly anymore, because that's we're going over and we're fighting for their freedom and democracy, and that didn't work, and look how nice Iraq worked out, and so I think that you can't say that anymore. It can't just be we're fighting for democracy.
All right. Thanks, Doc. That went
Good
so
job.
well. All right.